This is a short video to share some research that I came across from the Reading Research Quarterly magazine. It's from an article called Prompting Rural Students' Use of Background Knowledge and Experience to Support Comprehension of Unfamiliar Content. So what this study looks at is the traditional KWL chart that we're all familiar with that's used to prime students' background knowledge, and it posits a different style of a KWL in order to use relational reasoning to activate background knowledge and also make kids look at knowledge that conflicts with their own understanding, whereas the KWL doesn't deal with what students might be thinking about and the cognitive dissonance caused by having either incorrect or very different experiences in life, and the repercussions that having a lack of or opposite background knowledge can cause in a student's understanding. So the priming of a KWL, the text says, is expected to prepare students to meaningfully interact with the text, supporting students in integrating their background knowledge with newly presented information. However, when students have inaccurate background knowledge, they tend to rely on their previous understandings rather than integrating the new information with their old knowledge. And particularly in ELA and social studies, when we're working with lots of biographical details, geographical details, and historical details concerning people and other cultures, if students are relying on their own previous, possibly incorrect understandings, then they are less likely to understand what it is that we're trying to teach them. So I thought this method might be a useful way to implement an alternative to typical background knowledge activation. So it also says that further, students with very limited background knowledge may become frustrated or shut down when reading a text on an unfamiliar topic. So we definitely don't want that to happen. When we talk about the traditional KWL, we mean the know, want to know, and learned method, which is definitely better based on other research than the read, listen, discuss model. The KWL asks kids to activate what they do know so that now they have something to begin to integrate more information with. So just to review, they would work with what do we already know. They would list some facts, topics, definitions, anything that comes to mind. The want to know is based on what they already think they know. What would they want to know more about? And you can do that while reading too. If they see a detail while reading, they can jot that down and say, oh, I want to know more about this. That engages active listening skills. And then finally, we have the discussion at the end, which is the learned column. And those are details and facts that they learned afterward and while discussing it with the class. What this article, or rather what this study represents instead, is that there are times, particularly when we're dealing with something contentious or something that may be very foreign to a student's understanding, such as communism in Inside Out and Back Again, or the refugees' lived experience in A Long Walk to Water, that it may be more appropriate to use something like this. And this is my own model based on the research in this article. There's not actually a graphic organizer provided, but I read it, and this is the best that I could come up with. And I had some success working with students reading about refugees to assist in my reading systems classes with their ELA class, which is reading Long Walk to Water. So there are 4 columns instead of 3, and they can be done at any time during the reading process. There's the know, which is what do I already know about this topic? There's similar, which is what did I read that seems similar to my own life or my own beliefs? So that's getting kids to make a personal connection with a character or a plot event or a circumstance in the story. Then there's the strange column that says, what did I read that seemed a bit weird compared to my life or beliefs? So this is a column that begins to force kids to think about, how is this different from me, which is a different and complex metacognitive task. And finally, there's the opposite, which is going to be the hardest for the kids, I think. What did I read that seemed opposite my own life or beliefs? And in this particular column, they really need to think about where they are on whatever that curve is of, do I have private property? Do I not have private property? For example, in communism and capitalism. Do I have a home? Do I not have a home? And these charts may turn out differently for different students, particularly if they have different living circumstances. But it does encourage them to integrate both the similarities and the differences in the text. And the results were that relational reasoning such as this allowed students to make connections not only to prior topic knowledge, but to other sources of relevant information. And the effects were pretty positive. So give it a try.